you give us a look behind the curtain? Tell us what else he's going to be talking about tonight.
Gosh, I think most of it's out there now. He talks about making quad bikes for Wilf, his little boy. But he talks passionately about Ukraine and the advantage Brexit gave us in the vaccine rollout program, and being out of the Medicines Agency and able to get that vaccine quicker and into people's arms quicker and to produce it in the UK. So he spoke about that. He actually said Brexit saved lives. He talked about with amazing passion about Ukraine, because of course I don't think a lot of people realise that the global advice was don't poke the Putin bear, don't rile Putin, don't anger him, and by sending arms to Ukraine, that's what we were doing. And actually, it was the position of the rest of the world to lean into that advice and to not send aid to Ukraine. And of course, the advice was that in the UK too. But Boris very much was like, no way, we're going to send NLAWs, we're going to send tanks, we're going to help Ukraine right from day one. And that's why he's so popular in Ukraine, and that's why he and Zelensky are so close, because Boris marshaled world leaders, and that famous phone call when Biden said, okay, buddy, over to you, you lead on this, because he without his leadership, Ukraine wouldn't have had the lethal aid at the time it needed it to give it that advantage and to push Putin back and demoralize Putin. So there was
Now,
quite a big section on that.
yeah, and in terms of, I mean, you are, are a big supporter of Boris Johnson. You didn't want him to leave office, not at the time, nor in the way that he did. If you're putting money on a comeback, would you say that he would come back and that this is part of his comeback?
So, as I've said, I spent quite a bit of time with him since. He's never said that. He's never, ever said that. I can absolutely, hand on heart, tell you, he has never voiced a preference to return. I think if he did return, it would have to be kind of like by popular demand. MPs, people would have to really want him back, because the ousting of Boris Johnson was utterly duplicitous and brutal. And when I think you've been through that, I think it would take a lot to make you want to step back into that arena with those very people who removed you in the first place. So I think the
Duplicitous is
party.
quite a strong word. Who do you blame?
Well, I don't think there was. I don't think it's a surprising word to use. I mean, I think much has been written about it, and more will be. But there was a lot going on behind the scenes, and I think that if you asked anybody who'd been removed from power after winning an 80-seat majority, the biggest majority the Conservative Party have known for 40 years, after having the highest share of the vote, I think, is it since 1983? So, after his tremendous win and giving the Conservative Party the advantage that it needed, after all of that, after being the first person to produce, personally, phone the vice chancellors of universities and make sure we produce the vaccine in this country, and we got the first vaccines in arms in the first country and delivered Brexit, which he promised to do, delivered on his promise. I think it would take a lot to make anybody who'd been ousted in the way he had to want to go back and give their all to deliver
Well,
after what he achieved.
there appears to be quite a lot of unrest and oustings and other things going on at the moment. We've seen Nadine Zahawi, we've seen Gavin Williamson, Dominic Raab seems to be under a lot of pressure. I mean, it does all slightly seem to be falling apart.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you look back over the history of the Conservative Party over many generations, it's when any political party has been in power for a considerable time, it's difficult. And what was unusual with us was how recently, 3 years since we had that massive, almighty election victory. But if you look at Labour, Gordon Brown's, it was an ousting. It was done without the filter of social media and 24-hour, scrutiny the way it happens today. But it fell apart for Labour too. Tony Blair went, Gordon Brown came in, and they lost. So it's difficult. A party is more difficult to manage because you get into the scenario of You know, you've got people who have been ministers and think they should be ministers for their entire political careers, when of course there's only 100 jobs for like 350 people.
That's you. You were a culture secretary. You're now on the backbenches. You've chosen to go into television. You've talked about standing down and perhaps moving to the Lords. I mean, this is
Now,
a
I
big
haven't
change for
spoken
you.
about that, Ruth. Other
Sorry, it has
people.
been spoken about you. You're right. You're right.
You
I take that all
think
back. I take that all back. However, this move into television, I mean, that's quite a big change. Is there a reason for that? Is this something that you want to do more of?
no? It's an absolute bloody shock to me, to be honest. I just want to crawl behind the sofa and hide and ask myself, what the hell am I doing at 65? Stepping completely out of my comfort zone into a totally new environment that I've never worked in before. I don't know what's going on, Ruth. I think I'm going to wake up tomorrow and find out it was actually just all a dream.